Inside the stories that affect you. This is Inside KELOLAND.
Good evening and thanks for having us in. Like most years, 2019 was filled with highs and lows. From murder investigations to weather extremes and an execution, we've covered it all. There are also plenty of stories to warm the heart. Tonight we take you back over the past 12 months to show you some of the biggest stories of 2019, from tragedy to triumph. But first, Brookings County could see its highest number of felony convictions this year. And one of the driving forces behind the number may surprise you. KELOLAND's Sarah McDonald explains why the KELOLAND community is on track to record number of felony convictions and what the county is doing.
When you think of vaping, you probably think of users using a device filled with vape juice or e-liquid. But in Brookings County, people are using the devices with something else. THC oil.
Individuals can go to Colorado, buy this THC oil over the counter, and then bring it back here to South Dakota, attach it to a vaping device, and then they can easily ingest it.
Nelson says the use of THC oil is one of the driving forces behind more felony convictions in Brookings County.
It's a felony here in South Dakota to be in possession of THC oil. It's a Schedule I substance. And I think there's a lot of young people who may not realize that it is a felony offense. I think there's information believed by our young people and other adults that THC oil is still considered a misdemeanor, and it's not. It's prosecuted as a felony, a Schedule I substance.
While Nelson says methamphetamine is still the #1 felony drug in Brookings County, THC oil is a close second.
It's inching closer and closer every year, and especially this year. But the felony drug problem here in South Dakota is certainly the driver behind most of the felony offenses committed.
Over at the Brookings Police Department, Assistant Chief Derek Powers says in the last couple of years they've seen an increase in incidents involving controlled substances.
Be anything from coming across someone, having contact with them and find out that they've been ingesting a controlled substance or in possession of that, or possibly an investigation involving distribution of controlled substance. Those numbers back from 2017 to 2019 have actually doubled for us.
Powers says the department has been more proactive investigating and finding those controlled substances.
Trying to go out and look for that, provide training for our officers, certainly focusing on those types of things to try and deter individuals from bringing that activity to Brookings.
Nelson says his office is working hard to confront the rise in felony convictions.
We've used a new software program to where we're transferring audio and digital evidence to the defense attorneys in a much more timely, efficient manner, which allows us to move the case much quicker in the court system. The second thing that I've done is we've automated a lot of the legal documents. We've modernized the legal documents to where they can be processed both real time as it's happening in court, but then also the support staff is having to spend less time processing the legal documents here in the office.
Nelson says they are also working on targeting distributors and making sure they're held accountable.
I think of those three things, we've been very successful this year in doing that.
However, Nelson says he believes the problems associated with THC oil aren't going away anytime soon.
I think we're going to continue to confront this issue of THC oil specifically. And I think it's going to be a growing concern here in South Dakota on how we can properly enforce that, hold people accountable, bring awareness to this issue, because it is a dangerous drug. I mean, people are dying from vaping THC oil. And I think it is a growing concern, and I think it's a concern, unfortunately, that's here to stay.
With Eye on KELOLAND, I'm Sarah McDonald.
Nelson says the county also had a number of first-time felony offenders. Our investigative team spends countless hours each year making calls and researching cases important to you. Up next, a look at some of the biggest investigations we covered in 2019. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. From a murdered mother to one of the state's largest health systems and a top neurosurgeon accused of fraud, 2019 was a busy year for KELOLAND Investigates. Tonight, Angela Kennecke brings you the highlights of the top news investigations of the past year.
We live in a time of a testing of public character.
The KELOLAND Kremlin connection was an investigation we first brought you in 2017. Vermilion native and Republican conservative operative Paul Erickson and his Russian girlfriend, Maria Butina, formed a limited liability company in South Dakota called Bridges. To this date, I've been the only reporter to get a comment from Paul Erickson about the allegations against him. He spoke to me through his apartment speakerphone.
Hi, Angela. How can I be of help?
Well, I was wondering if you would be willing to talk to us about what the New York Times is reporting about you trying to set up a meeting between President Trump and Putin.
Oh, hi. Yeah, it didn't exactly happen that way.
Over the last 2 years, Kettleman Investigates has followed the saga of Butina and Erickson. Butina was sentenced to prison for being a covert Russian agent. She was deported back to Russia this year, where she now works as an online video host. In November of this year, Erickson pled guilty to a fraud scheme with a different South Dakota LLC that authorities say bilked at least $2.3 million from 78 people. He could face up to 20 years in prison.
Everybody can hear me, I assume?
We started looking into another case of investor fraud in 2016, and Global Aquaponics was still making headlines in 2019. Kettleman Investigates exposed the company organizers promised investors a big return on their money for a fish and vegetable farm proposed near Brookings, and lied about how much money they had on hand. The facility was never built. Two Global Aquaponics leaders, Tobias Reitzman and Tim Burns, were found guilty of federal fraud charges and sentenced to prison in 2019. Both Reitzman and Burns have filed appeals.
That's studying very hard and working very hard.
In June, we learned the details of a federal lawsuit first filed in 2016 after it was unsealed. The federal government accused Sioux Falls neurosurgeon Dr. Wilson Asfora of performing unnecessary surgeries and Sanford Health of doing nothing to stop it in order to make millions of dollars in kickbacks from Medicaid, Medicare, and other health programs. Kettleman Investigates spoke with a former Dr. Asfora brain surgery patient who filed a case in state court. Robin LeBeau underwent brain surgery in 2016 at Sanford Health. She claims the surgery was unnecessary and left her disabled.
There should not have ever been a brain surgery performed on me, that I was not a candidate for this brain surgery.
Other patients came to Dr. Asfora's defense, as well as his longtime nurse.
Do you believe that Dr. Asfora was unnecessarily putting in these cages or screws into patients?
You know, I don't believe that as a person he would do something like that, no.
Sanford Health fired Dr. Asfora in September. Without admitting any wrongdoing, Sanford Health agreed to pay more than $20 million to the federal government for the kickback schemes. The two physician whistleblowers who prompted the lawsuit get $1.7 million each. Dr. Asfora issued a statement to Kettleman News denying performing any unnecessary surgeries. Sioux Falls realtor Melissa Pesky was shot and killed while driving on Interstate 70 through Missouri on December 13th of 2018. A year later, the search to find her killer remains active. Kettleman Investigates first broke the story of Melissa Pesky being shot on her cross-country trip with her children. We spoke with her husband, Ryan, who initially told us he was a person of interest because he didn't pick up the phone when investigators first called. We learned through family and friends that Melissa was leaving Ryan, and that's why she was on her way to South Carolina. Her sister was talking to her on the phone moments before she died.
And then she said, "Just a minute, honey, I'm going to put the phone down," and so that way she could get around the car. And then we started talking again, and it wasn't 2-3 minutes later, and she stopped talking.
Missouri investigators say that in 2019, they followed up on 185 leads in the case. 8 of those leads are still being actively investigated. Rumors started flying when Minnehaha County's top prosecutor was out of the office for a couple of months over the summer. Aaron McGowan was first elected to the position back in 2008. McGowan granted Kettleman Investigates his only on-camera interview about the 911 call to his home that preceded his absence from work.
Why are you talking to me now?
Well, because I wanted to set the record straight, because there were reports out there that were false, and because of the questions out there, I just wanted to set the record straight and let everybody know I'm back, and there wasn't an issue or a cover-up or a crime.
McGowan told us he sought help for PTSD and planned to run for office again. But Governor Kristi Noem ordered South Dakota's Attorney General to investigate McGowan. While no criminal charges were filed, The report indicated that McGowan may have abused alcohol and sent inappropriate Snapchat messages to coworkers. McGowan announced he was resigning in December.
No right to appeal, just not covered.
In February of 2019, Kettleland Investigates exposed why many children with autism were losing their insurance benefit to cover effective treatment.
It was literally one sentence about that starting in 2019, Easton will no longer be getting the service that Avera has previously covered.
Over the summer, the state found a way to close the loophole that allowed insurers to drop coverage for the therapy for some policies. But the new requirements wouldn't go into effect until 2021. Parents told Kettleland Investigates that Governor Noem broke her promise to meet with them to come up with a solution. After Kettleland Investigates reported on the parents' concerns, Governor Noem helped bridge a gap in coverage for some of the children. Sanford Health Plan and Avera Health Plans have now voluntarily agreed to extend coverage in 2020 that won't be required of them until 2021. And those are just some of the major investigations we brought you in 2019. You may also remember we reported on the suspicious death of a young Native American boy on the Rosebud Reservation. The tribal president tells me the FBI is still investigating Alize Millard's death and is not releasing any new details. You can follow all of these stories and more on the Investigates page on Kettleland.com.
Well, not only are we in a new year, but a new decade as well. Well, the 2010s were busy with 2 presidential visits, some weather extremes, and the loss of Kettleland icons. On Kettleland.com, we're breaking down some of the moments that shaped the past 10 years. Just click on the Kettleland Original tab, and there you'll find the top stories broken down by year. From floods and tornadoes to an execution, we brought you a wide range of stories in 2019. Up next, a recap of some of the stories that stood out the most. Welcome back. Kettleland News brought you more than 450 hours of live news in 2019, and a lot happened in those 12 months. Tonight, Kettleland's Kelly Volk recaps the top stories of 2019.
2019 started with the historic swearing-in of Governor Kristi Noem. In January, Noem took office as South Dakota's first female governor.
The people of South Dakota have always supported people they believed in. And so I'm just incredibly grateful and humbled by their faith in me, and that will always keep me focused on making decisions that are best for them and their children and grandchildren.
February marked the beginning of a search for a 9-year-old Serenity Denard in western Kettleland. The young girl walked away from the Black Hills Children's Home Society near Rockerville. Within days, the search switched from a rescue to a recovery because of harsh weather conditions.
We're committed to finding Serenity, and we're going to do what it takes till we find her.
Since the girl's disappearance, search crews have combed the area to look for her. In March, floodwater took over parts of Kettleland. Here you can see Sioux Falls firefighters rescuing people by boat as water inundated a neighborhood.
The water kept getting deeper and deeper, and it happened really quick. And then all of a sudden it was just all the way up to our house. And they came knocking on our door telling us they'll help us get us out.
Weather continued to be the story the next month when a major April storm hit Kettleland, bringing snow, hail, rain, sleet, and thunderstorms. The wet spring not only wreaked havoc on homes and roads, but also on farms. Producers struggled to get in the fields and to keep their cattle safe and dry.
It's very sad at times to see the cows struggling through the mud just to get somewhere to eat.
In August, an EF1 tornado and powerful winds tore through the small town of Burke, damaging homes, businesses, school buildings, and more. But the community rallied to get back on its feet.
And it just really makes you see how strong we really are and how close we really are.
The next month, 3 EF2 tornadoes and a strong line of winds hit Sioux Falls. Several people were injured, buildings were torn apart, and trees were spread across the city. Officials called the damage extensive, but highlighted the community's resiliency.
man, when something like this happens, our community is extremely responsive and extremely supportive.
Soon, more flooding would devastate communities in eastern Keloland.
Mother Nature just needs to quit raining. That's the only thing I gotta say. It's just horrible.
The trouble for farmers would continue into the fall with a late, wet harvest.
This is what we do, okay? This is what we signed up for. It's not the perfect job. It's not for everybody. But in the end, when we're all said and done, we'll still do it again next year.
In November, the state of South Dakota executed death row inmate Charles Rines. Rines was convicted in the stabbing death of Donovan Schaefer inside a Rapid City donut shop back in 1992.
Words cannot express the sorrow I feel for the fact that Donovan was killed, but I'm glad we were finally able to get justice for him today. I am hopeful that this day is an opportunity for the family to move forward.
Tragedy struck just days after Thanksgiving in central Keloland. A plane crashed near Chamberlain, killing 9 members of an Idaho family.
I've been on the department for 27 years. No, this is first time for everybody. We sent probably 3 trucks that were out there, a total of 18 guys I think we had in our department there. Otherwise, yeah, police and law enforcement was first on scene though.
While the NTSB has released a preliminary report, the agency says no analysis or probable cause for the crash will be determined until the end of the investigation, which could last 2 more years. With Eye on Keloland, I'm Kelly Volk.
If you'd like to watch these stories in their entirety, we've added links with the stories on Keloland.com. Just go to the Inside Keloland section. The news in general may get a bad rap from time to time for negative or depressing stories, but there are plenty of uplifting stories that we bring you as well. A look back at some of the top positive news of 2019, like this one, when Inside Keloland returns. A year isn't just summed up by 365 days. It's measured by every positive moment we create for ourselves and for others. It's our goal to show you those triumphs whenever we bring you a Positively Keloland story. It may be a surprise for a student, a man who beat the odds, or a daring rescue that helped a mom and her flock of babies. 2019 had its share of reasons to smile. And tonight we're looking back at some of your favorite parts of Positively Keloland in 2019. After 39 years and what he guesses to be about 30,000 miles, U.S. Postal Service carrier John Olson reached the end of his walk and beginning of retirement.
I don't have a bad patron out here. You just got to learn to talk to him.
How's it going today?
This year, he hoisted his mailbag one last time and said goodbye. People on his route gave him a special delivery of their own. Gratitude.
We're all going to miss him, you know. Always on time, rain or shine. Yeah, he's the epitome of the old mailman.
I'm just doing my job, and I guess I'm appreciated somewhat. So it's been great.
A local college student felt appreciated this Christmas. A group of friends had a big surprise for a waitress, Caitlin Withy.
We are all going to leave a $100 bill.
But nobody wanted their change.
Everything left over is for you. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
The tip totaled more than $1,100. Caitlin will use it to buy books for college.
It happened to me, and when I opened the book, I just had so many emotions went through my head that I didn't even know what to think. Just immediate tears went to my eyes.
Firefighters risk their lives to put out flames, and that sparked an idea for Megan Stratman.
They're the first ones on the scene. They do a lot of things that, people can't do or they're just heroes, basically.
She delivered a hot lunch to Sioux Falls Fire Rescue on Labor Day.
Means a very nice gesture to us. I'm very appreciative of it. Very thankful that they could do that for us.
Lunchtime was more than a meal for the Hannon family. Adam Hannon used to put on his uniform and eat lunch with his children at school on Veterans Day. The South Dakota Army National Guard soldier. died in a crash about a year ago near Renner. His daughters, Nora and Abigail, wish they could relive those lunchtime moments.
You want to hear his voice. You want to feel him again.
Their mom, Lexi Erickson, called Adam's friend and fellow soldier and asked if he could visit Nora and her sister Abigail at school. Brian Slack said yes, and he brought in reinforcements.
Do the girls have any idea that you're here?
They have no idea that we're here.
Oh my God!
How are you?
Nora and Abigail were both excited when they saw the familiar faces waiting for them in the school library. After catching up, a Veterans Day lunch followed.
Just seeing all the suits, Army uniform, just makes me think of my dad.
This mother duck and her babies have ruled the roost in the courtyard of Dalrymple Village. As she was leading her brood through the parking lot, 3 of her ducklings fell through a grate and into the drain pipe below.
Mom, she's walking over the grates herself and she can make it, but the little ones fall in and she doesn't even realize it, and pretty soon she's back there standing over the grate, squawking to try to get them back out.
The Dalrymple maintenance staff went after the wayward waddlers.
I got here this morning and the first thing I heard is there was ducks in the grate, so we kind of know what to do about it, so I just headed over there and pulled the grate off and we hopped down in there and tried to see if we could get them to come back to one end or the other.
They set the ducklings free one by one, leading to this reunion.
Everybody loves that, Mom getting reunited with the little ones. So.
Every mile can be its own finish line. That's true for Pat Schwabach. Doctors told him 20 years ago the road ahead would end soon.
Doctor told me, "I hope you have everything in order because you might not see Christmas."
The doctor told us that his liver looked like Swiss cheese because there was so much cancer in it.
Pat started running and he hasn't stopped. He's in remission. This year, he ran his 20th Sioux Falls half marathon.
The reason for the running and the racing is so that I can be here with my family, and it's worked out, and I'm so thankful because that's all it's for. That's what I enjoy most, is being with my family.
We've only just begun 2020, and it won't be too long before we reach the end of the year. We place a lot of value on beginnings and endings. But as these people have shown us, they mean nothing without every positive moment in between. And we cannot do Positively KELOLAND stories without any of you. So if you have any ideas for these upbeat stories this year, please let us know. So what will 2020 look like? We'll find out. You can find out more about today's topics online at KELOLAND.com. Just click on the Inside KELOLAND section. Join us every Sunday following the 10 o'clock news right here on KELO TV. Hey, that's all the time we have for today. Be sure to join us again next week for more on what's going on inside KELOLAND.